Kayla Williams, a community center mentor, is wrongly arrested by a prejudiced police officer. Her seemingly ordinary day is shattered by casual cruelty, but she has an unexpected ally, her powerful billionaire boyfriend, Lucas Harrington. He'll stop at nothing to expose the injustice and ensure a powerful reckoning. This is a story of unwavering support, strategic action, and the fight for justice against systemic racism. Will Kayla and Lucas prevail? Sometimes a single moment can unravel our sense of safety. An unassuming day, a peaceful routine, all upended by casual cruelty. For Kayla Williams, a dedicated mentor at a community center, that moment arrived without warning. Stopped by a cop for no discernible reason, she found herself facing arrest on trumped-up charges, her pleas drowned in scornful jeers. But Kayla had one advantage her tormentor didn't know about: a powerful, fiercely protective billionaire boyfriend who refused to let injustice stand. When he arrived, quiet but resolute, no one could have predicted how swiftly the tables would turn or the karmic force that would soon descend. Kayla Williams prided herself on being someone who believed in small kindnesses. Raised in a tight-knit Chicago neighborhood, she had watched her mother juggle 2 jobs yet always find time to help neighbors. Inspired, Kayla devoted her adult life to community outreach, mentoring young teens at a local center. Though money was tight, her heart was expansive. It was at a charity gala, where she served as an organizer, that she met Lucas Harrington, a reserved yet magnetic billionaire investor associated with Goldman Sachs early in his career. From the outside, their relationship seemed improbable. Lucas's net worth dwarfed entire city budgets, while Kayla lived in a modest apartment brimming with mismatched furniture and secondhand books. But they connected over shared ideals, bridging opportunity gaps, uplifting underrepresented voices. Over months of quiet courtship, each discovered in the other a sense of purpose and warmth. Kayla was drawn to Lucas's calm sincerity. He found in her an anchor that kept him grounded amid corporate storms. On an overcast afternoon, Kayla left the community center carrying a box of donated clothing. She planned to drop it off at a nearby shelter. The wind nipped at her cheeks, but she hummed softly, pleased with a day well spent. That was when the cop's cruiser pulled up alongside her on a near-deserted street. She barely noticed it, too busy juggling the box. "Ma'am," a voice barked, "step over here, now!" Kayla halted, startled. The officer, his nameplate read, Officer Langston, exited the car, eyes raking over her face and the box in her arms. The tone was immediately accusatory. Confused, Kayla set the box down. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked politely. Langston's gaze flicked to the box. "What's in there?" His manner dripped suspicion, as though expecting stolen goods. Kayla explained it was clothing donations. He insisted on inspecting it. She complied, swallowing discomfort. The items were clearly secondhand sweaters, jeans, children's jackets. No sign of contraband or anything suspicious. But his hostility persisted. "You sure you didn't pick those up from that store on 8th? We got a report of theft." Kayla's eyebrows shot up. "I have receipts for the center's donated clothes if you need proof. They're from a drive, not a store." But Langston's glare only deepened, as if searching for an excuse to escalate. Sensing danger, Kayla tried to remain calm. She'd heard enough stories of minor police stops morphing into nightmares. She again offered to show documentation. The officer seemed unimpressed, demanding her ID. Nervous, Kayla complied, rummaging for her wallet. People walked by, some pausing at the sight of a cop towering over a black woman with tension radiating. Langston radioed in something Kayla couldn't decipher. Within moments, his stance changed from suspicion to open hostility. "You fit a suspect's description," he sneered. "We can't be too careful." Bewildered, Kayla asked what suspect. He refused specifics, ordering her to place her hands behind her back. The bystanders murmured, uncertain whether to intervene. "Officer, this is a misunderstanding. I work at the community center. I can call them, or—" Kayla tried, but he slapped cuffs on her wrists. Panic fluttered in her chest. She felt humiliation washing over her, hyper-aware that passers-by recorded with phones. "You have the right to remain silent," Langston muttered, as though reciting lines from a script he barely believed. "If you run your mouth, it only gets worse." Tears stung Kayla's eyes. She had done nothing. She recalled the donation receipts locked in her desk. This couldn't be real. An actual arrest for simply carrying clothes. The onlookers stared, whispering, some outrage. She glimpsed a teenage boy filming. A local store owner recognized Kayla, but hesitated. I didn't do anything wrong, Kayla repeated in her head, but it offered little comfort. In that terrifying moment, she felt powerless, singled out because of a random uniform's prejudice. Or was it more than random? Langston shoved her into the back of the cruiser. The claustrophobic interior magnified her sense of dread. She thought of Lucas, how he was finishing a meeting across town. Should she text him? Her phone lay in her purse, confiscated. With tears, Kayla realized she might vanish into a station cell before she could muster a defense. She prayed the passers-by's footage might help. But who'll listen? As the cruiser pulled away, Kayla pressed her forehead against the cold window. She tried to slow her breathing. She wasn't alone. If somehow she could reach out, Lucas would move mountains. But for now, she was on her own. The road to the station stretched ahead, uncertain and grim. Little did Officer Langston suspect that Kayla's quiet dignity was backed by a formidable ally, a wealthy, strategic mind who would stop at nothing to shatter injustice and unleash a karmic blow that would reverberate throughout the city. Lucas Harrington typically ended his day reviewing financial updates from his global holdings. But this afternoon, he was immersed in a more personal project, finalizing plans to expand the community center's after-school tutoring programs, a direct collaboration with Kayla. Satisfied with the outline, he stepped out for a quick coffee in the building's lobby. Mid-sip, his phone buzzed repeatedly, messages from multiple unknown numbers, plus a missed call from Emily, Kayla's closest friend. Alarmed, he dialed back. Emily answered in a flurry of words. Lucas, Kayla's just been arrested. Some cop claims she stole something. We're all shocked. People saw her get cuffed near Maple Street. Emily's voice trembled, confusion laced with anger. Lucas's blood ran cold. Arrested? On what grounds? Emily had few details. Kayla apparently had a box of clothes, something about a supposed theft claim, and the cop was unyielding. Onlookers filmed the encounter. Emily had just heard from a witness who recognized Kayla. She ended the call with a choked, "Help her, Lucas!" "She's at the precinct now." Stunned, Lucas's mind whirred. Kayla, the gentle teacher who meticulously kept donation receipts, accused of theft? It reeked of prejudice. His chest tightened, a fierce protectiveness surging. He left the coffee abandoned, striding to his private office. In a crisp, controlled tone, he commanded his personal assistant to arrange his car and call his top legal counsel, Giselle Crane. "Meet me at the 14th Precinct ASAP," he ordered. On the ride, anger simmered beneath Lucas's calm exterior. He thought of Kayla's stories, how she felt uneasy around some officers. He tried to believe progress overcame such blatant biases, but her arrest proved those illusions hollow. He wasn't naive. Money or power alone might not break institutional barriers, but he also knew how to leverage influence for rightful causes. If the policeman had no valid basis, Lucas intended to dismantle his entire justification. He texted Emily again. "Which station?" "14th. "On my way," she confirmed. The SUV weaved through traffic. Lucas recalled Kayla's fervent kindness, days spent tutoring kids, nights brainstorming new community programs. The idea of her in a holding cell stung him. "I'll free her," he swore silently, "and ensure the officer answers for this." At the station's entrance, Emily stood with a small group of Kayla's friends. Tension blanketed the air. Emily rushed to Lucas. "They won't let me see her. The desk officer claims they're still processing. We're worried about her health. She must be panicking." Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. Lucas placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I have legal counsel coming. We'll get her out." Inside, bright fluorescent lights illuminated a maze of desks. The air reeked of stale coffee. Lucas approached the front desk, announcing, "I'm here for Kayla Williams. I'm her fiancé." He used the term fiancé, though they weren't officially engaged, to underscore seriousness. The desk officer responded with a bored expression. "She's being booked for theft. Wait until an officer can speak with you." Lucas stiffened. "This is a misunderstanding. I want to speak to the commanding officer immediately." The clerk just shrugged, repeating protocol lines. Within minutes, a tall sergeant ambled over, mustache bristling. "Yes, can I help you?" Lucas introduced himself politely, citing Kayla's circumstances. The sergeant offered a forced courtesy, repeating, "We must follow procedure. If she's innocent, she can clarify in due time." Lucas, exhaling frustration, dialed Giselle Crane. "Giselle, they're stonewalling me. I need you here with a formal demand for immediate release or bond." She assured him she was en route with the necessary papers. Emily hovered anxiously. Meanwhile, on the station's far side, Lucas glimpsed a policeman in conversation with the lead desk officer, possibly the arresting cop. Moments later, Officer Langston emerged. He shot Lucas a disdainful look, as if unimpressed by the tailored suit or commanding presence. "So you're here about Ms. Williams?" he asked. "She was found with suspicious items, refused to cooperate." Emily gasped, outraged. Lucas's jaw clenched. "Those items are donation clothing for a shelter. She's a teacher, a community volunteer. There's no probable cause for theft." Langston shrugged. "We got a tip of a shoplifter matching her description." Emily retorted, "That's nonsense. She had no stolen goods." Lucas placed a hand on Emily's arm, calming her, then turned to Langston. "Show me evidence." "If you have none, you're violating her rights." The cop bristled, responding with textbook lines about ongoing investigation. Tension mounted. Emily fumed. "You're profiling her because she's black." Another officer stepped forward, cautioning Emily to remain calm. Meanwhile, Lucas fought to maintain civility, though fury coiled in his gut. This is an abuse of power, someone messing with Kayla for no legitimate reason. Finally, Giselle Crane arrived, brandishing legal documents. She demanded Kayla's immediate release pending investigation, citing the unsubstantiated nature of the claim. The station sergeant frowned, reviewing the papers. Pressure began building. A hush fell among onlookers. Emily recognized this as the moment where money and legal prowess might break the typical lines of intimidation. Kayla's meltdown behind bars or in a holding cell might end swiftly if the station realized who they were tangling with. But Officer Langston refused to budge, sneering, "I don't care who you folks are. She's staying until we finish." Lucas's voice, controlled but resonant, cut in. "If you insist on holding her without probable cause, you expose yourself to legal repercussions. Are you prepared for that?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed Langston's face. He tried to posture. "We do everything by the book." In that standoff, Kayla's life hung in the balance. Emily trembled with anger, Giselle prepared to escalate, and Lucas vowed not to leave without Kayla. The entire precinct felt the undercurrent. This was no routine booking. As the legal standoff intensified, onlookers murmured about potential fallout. And behind closed doors, Kayla likely sat in a bleak holding room, wondering if rescue would truly come. She had no clue that her devoted boyfriend, billionaire, strategic, unstoppable, was orchestrating a turning of tables that would soon echo beyond the station's walls. Kayla Williams had never felt so isolated. In a cramped, dimly lit holding area, she perched on a metal bench, handcuffs removed but the chill in the air persisting. No one had offered an explanation beyond vague theft allegations. Officer Langston occasionally passed by, a smug glance suggesting he relished her discomfort. Kayla tried to keep it together, replaying how a routine day devolved into nightmare. She thought of Lucas, his calm brown eyes, the way he always listened intently. If anyone could resolve this fiasco, it was him, but she feared the system's inertia. Money might open doors, yet prejudice often slammed them shut just as fast. She clutched the memory of Emily and others who cared. "I'm not alone," she reminded herself, inhaling slowly. Outside, the tension spiked. Giselle Crane, Lucas's formidable legal counsel, confronted the station's higher-ups. Giselle demanded immediate review of any evidence supporting Kayla's detention. The police tried stalling, but Giselle's knowledge of procedure cornered them. If they had no official witness statements or stolen goods linked to Kayla, they risked a wrongful arrest lawsuit. The watch commander eventually caved to letting her see Kayla briefly, albeit under supervision. Lucas watched Giselle vanish behind secure doors. Emily next to him said quietly, "He's messing with the wrong family." Lucas only nodded, scanning the station's layout, mentally cataloging the chain of command. Officer Langston hovered behind a desk, ignoring them but aware of their presence. Lucas recognized that a direct showdown with Langston might yield no immediate results if the station circled wagons. Instead, he quietly texted a friend at Goldman Sachs, someone with political ties, to see if any city official might expedite an external check on this arrest. He then alerted a civil rights attorney he'd once funded, hoping they could add pressure from outside. Emily, seeing him in action, realized how methodically he used his resources. Not bribery or overt threats, but a strategic muster of legitimate channels to pierce the precinct's protective shell. Meanwhile, inside the holding area, Giselle found Kayla. The teacher's eyes flicked up, relief flooding her face. "Oh, Giselle, thank God! They won't believe me. I keep telling them it's all a misunderstanding." The attorney reassured her, "Lucas is here. Emily's here. We're demanding your release." Kayla's shoulders sagged with gratitude. Giselle examined Kayla's condition, ensuring no abuse had occurred. She explained that the policemen had no real evidence, so they aimed for a quick release. "Hang tight," she said, clasping Kayla's hands. "We'll fix this." Returning to the main lobby, Giselle approached the watch commander with a summary. "She's a teacher carrying donated clothes. You have 0 store owners pressing charges for theft. The officer's entire case is flimsy. Let Ms. Williams go, or we escalate to the district attorney." The watch commander, exhaling, asked for time to confirm. Lucas waited, tension building. Emily softly murmured, "Can't we do more?" "This is insane." He patted her shoulder, voice low. "We must let them follow procedure, or they'll claim we circumvented. But I have more steps if they stall." She nodded, impressed by his calm. Finally, the watch commander emerged from an office. He avoided eye contact, muttering something about verifying Kayla's statement. Emily glared, hands on hips, while Giselle pressed, "Your officer forced her here for hours." "This is borderline illegal detention." The watch commander hedged. "We must ensure no store had goods stolen. It's standard." But the tone lacked conviction. He signaled to a subordinate to check with downtown dispatch for any missing goods reports. Emily rolled her eyes, certain it was more stalling. Officer Langston smirked from behind the desk, as if enjoying the ruse. Lucas approached him calmly. "Officer, you realize Kayla's done nothing wrong. Why push this charade?" Langston's gaze flicked with a sneer. "Some folks think they're above the law just because they have resources." The insinuation that Kayla or Lucas felt above the law bristled Lucas. "We just want fairness," he said. "You picked the wrong target if you think we'll let this slide." Langston's smirk flickered. He retorted with a scornful whisper, "You can't buy everything, Harrington." "The law is the law." Lucas said nothing, letting silence carry weight. Emily, overhearing, stiffened. She recognized that prejudice wasn't just a matter of legal procedure, but a personal vendetta for Langston. Time ticked. Eventually, the watch commander returned, announcing that no theft complaint matched Kayla or her clothing. He sighed. "We'll let her go with a warning." Emily nearly exploded. "A warning for what?" But Giselle held her back. "Take the outcome," she whispered. "We'll handle the rest after she's out." At last, Kayla emerged from a side corridor, escorted by a junior officer. She looked drained, but her eyes brightened upon seeing Lucas and Emily. They rushed to embrace her. The watch commander offered a half apology. Langston lingered, arms crossed, glowering. Lucas, his voice steeled, told Kayla, "You're safe now. We're leaving." He turned to Langston, adding, "But this is far from over." The policeman's jaw tightened, a flicker of nervousness creeping into his eyes. Kayla, leaning on Lucas's arm, stepped out of the precinct, heart thrumming with relief and simmering anger. In the parking lot, Emily vented, "That jerk Langston basically kidnapped you for nothing." Kayla nodded, voice shaky. "I can't believe it happened. I felt so helpless." Lucas gently squeezed her hand. "I'll ensure he's held accountable. I have resources. This won't vanish in silence." Kayla bit her lip, tears threatening. "I don't want revenge, just justice. So no one else endures this." Lucas's gaze hardened, recalling other stories of police harassment overshadowed by uniform loyalty. But he wasn't powerless. He had top-tier lawyers, philanthropic influence, and a will to do right. "We'll gather the bystanders' footage," he said. "Giselle can coordinate. Emily, can you help identify witnesses? Then we file a formal complaint with Internal Affairs. If they ignore it, we escalate further. If the media picks this up, so be it." Kayla nodded, fighting tears. She realized Lucas wouldn't let this fade. He might be a billionaire used to boardroom battles, but he'd channel that prowess into her defense. Emily, too, stood ready to mobilize community networks. A sense of unity blossomed in Kayla's chest, offsetting the day's humiliation. That night, Kayla cried in Lucas's arms, unleashing the pent-up fear. He held her, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "I promise," he whispered, "we'll see that policeman answer for his abuse. You're not alone." Beneath the soft lamplight of her living room, they shared a silent vow. The path might be rocky, departments often shield their own, but with Emily's activism, Lucas's resources, Giselle's legal muscle, and Kayla's moral clarity, they formed a formidable front. Officer Langston had no idea the storm he'd ignited by casually profiling a random black woman. Soon, that casual cruelty would collide with unstoppable resolve, fueling a drama that would reshape not just Kayla's life, but the city's conversation on policing and race. Hard karma was en route, poised to unmask the policeman's prejudice for all to see. The day after Kayla's release, Giselle Crane swung into action, spearheading the investigation. She coordinated with Emily Martin, who tapped her activist network to gather testimonies from anyone who witnessed Kayla's arrest. Within hours, they discovered multiple phone recordings, one from the teenage bystander, another from a local store camera that happened to capture glimpses of the confrontation. The footage painted a stark picture: Langston's sudden hostility, Kayla's calm attempts to explain, and the lack of any mention of actual theft. Meanwhile, Emily organized a meeting at the community center. About 20 people came, including staff, volunteers, and some neighbors. Kayla, still shaken, recounted her ordeal quietly. Emily asked if anyone had known or heard of Langston before. Turns out, a local mother remembered him as the same cop who harassed her son, though no official complaint had been filed. Another shared rumors about Langston's reputation for targeting black residents with random checks. The seeds of a pattern emerged. Giselle took meticulous notes, advising them on how to file official statements with Internal Affairs. Emily promised to support the mothers who wanted to come forward. Kayla marveled at the unity forming. These people, bridging backgrounds and experiences, determined to shed light on a policeman's pattern of discrimination. She felt a spark of hope. Lucas Harrington joined that meeting, uncharacteristically silent but taking everything in. Afterward, he conferred with Giselle, remarking, "We must ensure the department can't bury this. The moment we file a complaint, we share the footage and statements with the press. Let them see the truth." Giselle agreed, adding that a civil lawsuit might also be warranted if IA dragged its feet. Emily nodded, insisting that public pressure was key. "If we keep it quiet, they'll do minimal discipline, like a slap on the wrist. We must force a thorough investigation." Kayla hovered on the edge of that conversation, half uncertain about the glare of publicity. She disliked sensationalism, but Emily and Lucas assured her that shining a spotlight might protect others from the same fate. Kayla mustered resolve. She realized staying silent allowed injustice to flourish. That evening, Giselle hammered out a polished letter to the police chief, accompanied by the videos and testimonies. She ended it with a stern notice. "Should the department fail to investigate promptly, we reserve the right to pursue legal remedies and public disclosure." Emily distributed the letter to local media outlets, ensuring they knew an official complaint was in motion. The police chief's office acknowledged receipt, promising a thorough review. Emily's network, cynically wise to official jargon, pressed them to name an Internal Affairs contact. The chief's office claimed they'd update them soon. Meanwhile, local reporters latched onto the storyline. Teacher wrongly arrested for carrying clothes. Activists, billionaire boyfriend demand action. Kayla found her phone buzzing with inquiries, some supportive, others prying for scandal. She felt conflicted. She wasn't seeking fame. Emily recommended she do a short interview with a credible local journalist, clarifying the facts. Lucas concurred. Kayla agreed, choosing a sympathetic reporter from a community newspaper over a sensational TV crew. In a quiet coffee shop setting, she recounted her background, her day, and how the arrest blindsided her. The reporter's piece, published under the headline, "Kindness Shouldn't Be Suspicious," garnered an outpouring of empathy. As the city read about Kayla, more residents recognized the pattern. The random stops, the flimsy charges. Emily started receiving calls from people who'd encountered Langston's heavy-handed approach. One woman had been ticketed for loitering outside a grocery store while waiting for her ride. Another man said he was forced to open his gym bag for no reason. None had formal proof, so they let it slide. Emily suspected a storm of testimonials if word kept spreading. Langston, for his part, bristled under scrutiny. The department likely warned him to stay silent while IA handled the complaint. Meanwhile, he complained to colleagues that the rich guy is stirring trouble, painting Kayla as a manipulative figure. Some officers, hearing the video evidence, grew uneasy, knowing it might be indefensible if the public demanded accountability. Within a week, the department announced that Internal Affairs would interview Kayla and Emily. They set a date for Langston's interview as well. Emily privately fretted that IA often shielded officers, but with Lucas's high-profile backing, they might be forced to act. She hammered the point. We must keep public attention alive. If they sense we're complacent, the policeman could walk free, with maybe a mild admonishment. Lucas, spurred by protective rage, considered a direct press conference. Giselle advised caution, highlighting the ongoing investigation. They settled on a measured statement. We trust the department to uphold justice. If not, we'll pursue all legal channels. Meanwhile, Emily's network fanned out, gathering more community stories to present if IA tried brushing them off. In Kayla's personal life, the outpouring of support from her students and neighbors warmed her heart. Some parents wrote her notes, praising her courage. The kids scrawled pictures of her as a superhero teacher. She pinned them to her living room wall, a testament that even the darkest experiences can spark collective solidarity. Yet the emotional toll lingered. Nightmares, flashbacks of the handcuffs. At times she awoke in tears, recalling Langston's smirk. But every morning Lucas reaffirmed his presence, reminding her that they stood on truth's side. Emily's daily calls also soothed her. The unstoppable synergy of an outraged community, a determined legal counsel, and a billionaire boyfriend's resources meant no one dared bury Kayla's complaint. The cops' casual cruelty was poised to backfire spectacularly. Hard karma, indeed, was on the horizon, about to unmask an officer's prejudice and force the entire department to confront its failings. The day arrived for Kayla's formal interview with Internal Affairs. She'd never stepped foot in the IA's offices, housed in a stark municipal building downtown, flanked by dull corridors and glass partitions. Emily escorted her, hand clenched in Kayla's, for moral support. Lucas, while supportive, remained outside to avoid overshadowing the interview. Giselle Crane, crisp in a tailored suit, guided them inside. A detective named Carl Mendoza, assigned to Kayla's case, greeted them politely. He offered water, attempting a cordial tone. Kayla sat in a small conference room, the overhead lighting harsh. Emily observed quietly, while Giselle prepared to intervene if needed. Once the official questions started, Kayla relived each moment of her arrest. How she simply walked with a box, Officer Langston's abrupt suspicion, his refusal to hear her explanation. She recounted every detail, voice trembling with leftover fear. Emily occasionally chimed in, referencing videos and witness statements. Mendoza took notes, nodding gravely. He asked clarifications. Did Kayla notice any store alarm? Did the officer mention probable cause? The more she explained, the weaker any justification seemed. Emily supplemented with her own knowledge of other alleged victims. Though not official in Kayla's case, it hinted at a pattern of harassment. At the interview's end, Mendoza said they'd also talk to Langston, compare accounts, then submit findings to a review board. Giselle pressed for a timeline. Mendoza gave a vague, within a few weeks. Emily's expression hardened, suspecting stalling. Giselle pointedly reminded him of the public scrutiny, hinting that the department wouldn't want accusations of a cover-up. Mendoza assured them, "We're serious about this. I'll do my job." Outside, Emily exhaled. Hard to trust them, but we put everything on record. Kayla nodded, shoulders slumping with exhaustion. I hate reliving it, she admitted. Emily squeezed her hand. We'll keep pushing. We have Lucas on standby. 2 days later, Officer Langston's own IA session took place. He arrived with a union lawyer, scowling at the detective's questions. According to rumors Emily heard from a sympathetic officer, Langston tried to double down, claiming a tip about stolen clothes justified the stop. But confronted with the videos showing Kayla's calm compliance, the claim looked flimsy. The union lawyer cautioned him not to reveal more, suspecting the entire fiasco was unraveling. As the IA process continued, local press kept tabs. Emily regularly updated reporters, ensuring the story stayed relevant. Some outlets interviewed those who'd witnessed Kayla's arrest. Each recalled seeing no theft or aggression. Social media posts circulated, calling for justice for Kayla. The policeman's name spread widely, linking him to other questionable stops. Amid this, Kayla tried returning to her normal routine, teaching, volunteering, but the strain lingered. She flinched at sudden sirens, worried about potential retaliation from disgruntled officers. Lucas gently suggested professional security, but Kayla resisted, not wanting to live in fear. Instead, Emily or a co-worker often walked with her after hours, forming a protective circle. Lucas, too, rearranged his schedule to pick her up from the community center, ensuring she never faced a deserted street alone. One afternoon, Emily discovered more direct evidence. A local seamstress recognized Langston from a prior harassment claim. She had proof, a phone recording of him belittling her nationality. Emily urged the seamstress to share it with IA. The seamstress agreed, outraged that her initial complaint vanished. Emily realized they now had a strong pattern indicating possible racism. Emily forwarded that evidence to Giselle, who swiftly appended it to Kayla's case. At the same time, rumors circulated that the precinct's leadership was uneasy about this spotlight. Officers grumbled about the union's approach. The police chief, pressured by activists, demanded the IA unit expedite the review. Emily heard from an inside source that some in the department wanted to cut Langston loose if the evidence proved clear misconduct, fearing the entire force's reputation tarnished by one man's bigotry. Meanwhile, Lucas maintained a quiet but potent presence. He funded new legal outreach programs for minority communities, bridging Kayla's ordeal with systemic solutions. Unofficially, he kept lines open with City Hall. He never threatened or boasted, but the mayor's office knew that ignoring Kayla's case could spark a scandal. Emily teased Kayla, "Your boyfriend moves chess pieces behind the scenes." Kayla half laughed, acknowledging that while love drove him, his strategic mind powered a broader cause. The tension peaked when IA announced they would reconvene a hearing to present preliminary findings to a departmental board. Giselle arranged for Kayla to attend as the key complainant. Emily collected other victims, hoping the board would hear them too. Lucas readied statements from City Hall allies if the department tried stonewalling. The swirl of expectation weighed heavily on Kayla. Would they confirm wrongdoing or downplay it? On the morning of that IA hearing, Kayla felt her stomach in knots. She and Emily arrived at the department building, facing a cluster of media outside. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. Giselle led them inside, stepping into a large, austere conference room. There, uniformed officials sat behind a long table. Officer Langston appeared on one side with union reps, while Kayla, Emily, and Giselle took seats on the other. A hush settled. Detective Mendoza commenced the session, summarizing the investigation's scope. Kayla tried to steady her breath. She spotted Lucas slipping quietly into the back row, offering a supportive nod. Emily placed a reassuring hand on Kayla's shoulder. Then, in a measured tone, Mendoza began revealing the findings. Kayla braced for the moment of truth, a crossroads that would either condemn or exonerate the policeman who shattered her peace. Detective Carl Mendoza cleared his throat, scanning the room of expectant faces. He glanced at Kayla, Emily, and Lucas in the audience, then shifted to the stoic union representatives flanking Officer Langston. The tension felt thick as he spoke. Following our investigation into Ms. Williams' arrest, we have reviewed video footage, witness accounts, prior allegations regarding Officer Langston, and the officer's own testimony. He paused, letting the significance settle. Kayla's heart thumped. Emily clutched her hand. Lucas, in the back, leaned forward slightly, expression controlled yet intense. Mendoza continued, "The evidence strongly indicates Ms. Williams was detained without probable cause or credible suspicion. The purported theft claim lacks substantiation, as no store reported missing items. Additionally, Ms. Williams had donation receipts for the clothing she carried, consistent with her statement." A murmur spread among the department officials seated behind the table. One official jotted notes, another frowned. Mendoza pressed on, "We also uncovered a pattern in Officer Langston's stops, particularly targeting individuals of color, often culminating in minor citations or intimidation. Some earlier complaints were dismissed for insufficient evidence, but the new statements from multiple community members, plus the recordings, present a compelling case of biased policing." Kayla exhaled, relief mixing with anger that it took so much effort to expose the truth. Emily bit her lip, tears threatening. The union reps at Langston's side stiffened. The policeman's face turned pale, mouth a grim line. Finally, Mendoza relayed the recommendation. "We propose disciplinary measures up to suspension or termination, pending the department's internal board review. The board will decide the final sanction. This is not a matter of a single error, but a repeated misuse of authority contravening departmental policy." A hush followed, broken only by a few gasps and subdued applause from Kayla's supporters. Emily squeezed Kayla's hand. Lucas allowed himself a small nod, satisfied. On the other side, Langston seethed. The union rep demanded a chance to speak, slamming the table. "This is a travesty. Officer Langston denies malicious intent. He served with distinction. Race is being exploited here." The official at the table gestured for calm, stating the board would convene promptly. In the corridor afterwards, Kayla trembled in Emily's embrace. "They admitted it," she whispered, half in disbelief. Emily smiled tearfully. "Yes, they did. He might actually face real consequences." Lucas joined them, carefully wrapping an arm around Kayla. "We're close to justice. The board's final decision is the last hurdle," he reminded them, voice soft with hope. Reporters swarmed, capturing the moment. Emily recapped the hearing's revelations, emphasizing how the policeman's pattern was laid bare. Kayla shyly expressed gratitude for the detective's thoroughness. "We believed in the system, and it listened. This time," she said, mindful that many others never got such thorough investigations. Lucas simply stated, "We trust the departmental board to finalize the correct disciplinary measures. We stand for a future where no one is profiled." As Kayla left the building, she felt a weight lifted. While the final sanction wasn't official, the department's pivot from denial to accountability validated her fight. On social media, news spread like wildfire. Officer who arrested woman for donated clothes faces possible firing. Emily's phone buzzed with messages from activists, celebrating. The union, however, blasted out statements on certain talk shows, decrying political correctness. But the tide of public opinion leaned strongly in Kayla's favor. In the days that followed, Kayla resumed teaching with newfound assurance. Students who'd followed updates online offered hugs or applause, joking, "Miss Williams is unstoppable." She laughed it off with humility. Meanwhile, Emily's coalition pressed for a city council resolution ensuring that bias complaints receive expedited reviews. Lucas quietly lobbied sympathetic council members, offering philanthropic support for better oversight. Finally, word came that the departmental board scheduled a special session to finalize sanctions. Emily and Kayla planned to attend, though typically these were closed proceedings. However, a wave of public interest compelled the department to allow limited attendance. They set a date. Kayla's nerves spiked again. Fearful they might water down the penalty, let Langston remain with a mild reprimand. Emily reminded her, "We have the evidence. The public stands behind you." Lucas prepared additional legal muscle if the verdict proved unsatisfactory. Meanwhile, Officer Langston tried mounting a defense. He and union lawyers claimed procedural errors in IA's process. The department rebuffed them, citing the thorough documentation. Without the union's full-throated backing, Langston faced an uphill climb. Whispers suggested he considered resigning, but he held out, hoping the board might simply suspend him. Emily scoffed at the notion that his partial contrition should spare him from real accountability. On the morning of that board session, Kayla awoke early, a swirl of anxiety in her gut. She dreaded facing Langston again, dreaded seeing that sneer, but she resolved to see it through, for herself and for those who had no platform. Lucas accompanied her, Emily by her side. As they reached the department's hearing room, a small crowd of supporters gathered outside. Cameras flashed, a reminder of the case's significance. Kayla inhaled deeply, stepping inside. The final act of this drama was about to unfold, and with it, the policeman's fate, sealed by the unstoppable momentum of one woman's truth and her billionaire boyfriend's unwavering devotion. The departmental board session took place in a modest conference hall deep within the police headquarters. Rows of chairs lined the perimeter for a select group of observers, while a panel of senior officers and city representatives formed a dais. Their solemn expressions signaled the gravity of this meeting. Officer Langston arrived flanked by union lawyers, eyes sweeping the room with resentment. Across from him sat Kayla, Emily, and Giselle, with Lucas seated quietly behind them. The hush that settled felt almost tangible. A lead board member, Deputy Commissioner Barnes, called the session to order, stating its purpose: to determine final disciplinary action against Officer Langston in light of IA's findings and repeated allegations of racially motivated misconduct. The union lawyer made one last attempt at damage control. He argued that the evidence was circumstantial, Kayla's supporters had politicized a minor incident, and that Officer Langston was following standard procedures. Kayla's stomach churned at the dismissive phrases. Emily clenched her fists, muttering under her breath. Lucas maintained calm, though a flicker of tension braced his jaw. Next, Detective Mendoza, representing IA's conclusions, recapped the key points. The unsubstantial theft claim, video footage contradicting Langston's story, consistent pattern of targeting minorities, and new statements uncovered by Emily's group. The union lawyer tried objecting, calling it hearsay, but the board allowed the evidence summary. Kayla exhaled relief, watching how the board members nodded gravely. She sensed that, for once, a system typically slow to punish its own might deliver real accountability. Then the board invited Kayla to address them if she wished. Torn between anxiety and resolve, she stood. Voice trembling, she recounted that humiliating day. I was carrying clothes for donation. Officer Langston singled me out, arrested me with no cause. I was terrified, my pleas ignored. If I lacked the support I had, I might have a record for a crime that never existed. She ended quietly. I love this city, but no one should endure such humiliation. Please ensure this stops. Her words left an echo of hushed empathy. Even among some uniformed attendees, Kayla saw flickers of understanding. Emily squeezed Kayla's hand as she resumed her seat. On the other side, Langston clenched his jaw, refusing eye contact. The union lawyer attempted to cross-examine Kayla, but the board cut him short. We've seen the video. That's enough. Finally, Deputy Commissioner Barnes announced they would deliberate briefly and return with a decision. Tension soared as they left the dais for a private room. The hush in the hall was heavy. Kayla felt Emily's warm hand in hers, Lucas's supportive presence behind them. Giselle remained poised, ready for either outcome. Langston turned away, ignoring Kayla's side, union reps murmuring possible next steps. After what felt like an eternity, actually about 45 minutes, the board re-emerged, each official wearing a stern countenance. Deputy Commissioner Barnes, clearing his throat, delivered the verdict. We, the disciplinary board, find Officer Langston guilty of repeated misuse of authority, culminating in the wrongful detention of Ms. Kayla Williams. The pattern of racially biased policing contravenes departmental policy and community trust. Effective immediately, Officer Langston is dismissed from the police force. Additionally, his record will note misconduct, barring rehire within affiliated agencies. A collective exhale. Kayla's heart pounded. Beside her, Emily whispered, "He's fired." Lucas shut his eyes briefly in relief. Even Giselle couldn't hide a small smile. The union lawyer attempted to protest, but Barnes hammered, "This is final. Any appeal must proceed through the city's established channels, but the board stands firm." Langston's face reddened, fist balled. "This is a sham," he roared. Emily started to retort, but Kayla gently tugged her arm, not wanting to stoop. The board admonished Langston to keep composure. He stormed out in a flurry, union reps chasing him. Cameras outside no doubt awaited him, capturing the meltdown. Hard karma landed with a force that left the city's circle of onlookers speechless. Kayla and Emily embraced, tears shining in Kayla's eyes. Lucas stepped forward, enveloping her in a hug. The crowd of Kayla's supporters broke into spontaneous applause. Some officers quietly observed, arms folded, but no one stepped to defend the disgraced policeman. Deputy Commissioner Barnes offered Kayla a nod, a silent apology for the department's failing. She appreciated the gesture, though the memory of that day's humiliation wouldn't easily vanish. Reporters swarmed as Kayla emerged from the building with Emily and Lucas. Microphones thrust forward, capturing this rare instance of a policeman fired for racial bias. Emily gave a spirited statement. "This is more than a single victory. It's a message that no uniform stands above accountability." Kayla, in a quieter tone, expressed gratitude for the board's thoroughness, hoping this spurred deeper change. Lucas maintained a subdued but supportive presence, acknowledging the department's steps toward justice. Across town, news of Langston's dismissal ignited debate. Some talk radio hosts lauded the department's newfound backbone. Others claimed the Harrington fortune pressured the system, but the broader public recognized Kayla's sincerity. No gold digger, just a teacher with a big heart, undeservedly targeted. Emily's activism soared in credibility, funneling attention on broader policing reforms. That night, Kayla and Lucas retreated to her cozy apartment. Over a simple dinner, they absorbed the day's shock. Kayla wrestled with relief and the lingering ache that a man lost his career, even if he deserved it. Lucas gently reminded her that reaping consequences was necessary for repeated harm. "You've changed this city's narrative, Kay," he said softly. "Now people see we won't let prejudice stand unchallenged." She nodded, tears slipping free. The ordeal was over, but the scars remained. Yet the future shimmered with possibility. Freed from the fear that her name might be tarnished, Kayla resolved to channel her experience into advocacy. Emily encouraged her to speak at local forums, bridging communities in pursuit of fair policing. Lucas privately vowed to expand philanthropic grants for accountability measures. The final lines of this drama had been penned, an unjust arrest answered by unwavering solidarity, culminating in a policeman's downfall. Hard karma indeed struck, leaving behind a fresh wind of hope that would ripple through the city's corridors of power for years to come. In the weeks following Officer Langston's firing, the city grappled with the aftermath of Kayla Williams' triumph. Local newspapers ran follow-up pieces spotlighting how a teacher, a billionaire, and a determined activist network dismantled the impunity of a single cop's discriminatory approach. Spurred by the scandal, the police department introduced new mandatory trainings on bias and community relations. Emily Martin was invited to consult, ensuring these changes weren't mere lip service. Kayla's life settled into a semblance of normality. The nightmares she once had, haunted by Langston's looming figure, grew less frequent. She resumed weekend donation drives for local shelters, unafraid to carry boxes of clothes. Her confidence soared, buoyed by unwavering community support. Meanwhile, Emily's coalition thrived, branching into broader campaigns against racial profiling. Some residents from other precincts stepped forward with their own grievances, hoping to replicate Kayla's success. Lucas Harrington remained a background figure in these developments, supporting Kayla, Emily, and the cause while avoiding grandstanding. He funded a major expansion of the community center's youth programs, referencing Kayla's dedication as inspiration. The media teased the couple's synergy, the philanthropic synergy of teacher and tycoon, one headline read. Kayla laughed at the phrasing, but she was grateful their union wasn't just about romance, it was about forging tangible progress. One day an invitation arrived at Kayla's mailbox. Harriet Carter, the billionaire judge known for bold rulings, extended an offer to speak at a private roundtable on policing reforms. Kayla hesitated. She'd never personally met Carter, but the judge's name carried mythical weight. Emily urged her to accept. That judge has a history of shattering tradition for justice. You two share a kindred spirit, Kayla agreed, curious about the synergy between Carter's judicial might and the movement Kayla symbolized. The round table, held at a discreet city club, brought together legal minds, community leaders, and philanthropic powerhouses. Kayla approached, nervous. Harriet Carter greeted her warmly, praising her bravery. Kayla, starstruck, found Carter down to earth, discussing how personal stories can catalyze institutional change. The judge's words resonated. Never underestimate how a single act of standing up can trigger systemic shifts. Kayla recognized the parallel to her own journey. Their conversation drifted to Emily's grassroots approach, Lucas's philanthropic connections, and how bridging those worlds could sustain lasting reforms. Harriet Carter confided that she'd always believed in using wealth quietly, but recognized that in times of moral crisis, we can't remain discreet. We must stand visibly with the oppressed. Kayla felt validated, realizing her story was part of a broader tapestry of necessary activism. Returning home, Kayla recounted the roundtable to Emily and Lucas. Emily beamed. "We're forging alliances that might transform policing across the city, if not beyond." Lucas added, "Your experience, ironically, gave a face to the fight. People can't ignore the cruelty we saw, nor the hope that overcame it." Kayla swallowed, humility washing over her. She'd never wanted to be a figurehead, but fate had chosen her. If it helped others avoid her ordeal, she'd embrace it. As for Officer Langston, he vanished from public discourse. Some rumored he left the state, possibly seeking a law enforcement role elsewhere. Emily's group tried alerting neighboring counties. "A cop who's been fired for bias might slip through cracks," Emily warned. But at least in Kayla's city, he was done. The union refrained from mounting further appeals, not wanting more negative spotlight. They pivoted to protecting the rest of their members, acknowledging that times were changing. The final chapters of Kayla's ordeal were penned in neighborhood improvements. She and Emily collaborated on a project bridging local cops willing to volunteer off-duty hours at the community center. Kayla even found a few open-minded officers who read to children, forging trust. While not everyone was on board, it signaled that the environment had shifted from hostility to cautious cooperation. Emily marveled, "We used to fear the uniform. Now some are forging friendships." As the city embraced these reforms, Kayla felt a serene sense of closure. The hard karma that struck Langston had also dismantled illusions that a single officer's uniform granted immunity from prejudice. The entire community awakened to the power of collective action. Fueled by Emily's activism, Lucas's strategic backing, Harriet Carter's moral authority, and Kayla's courageous stand. One evening, Kayla and Lucas strolled through a local street fair, ironically reminiscent of that fateful day. This time, Kayla carried a box of donated books for a literacy program. She wasn't worried about being harassed. They laughed, enjoying the festive atmosphere. Occasionally, passers-by recognized them, offering warm greetings or a brief, "Thank you for all you did." Kayla smiled, heart full. She looked at Lucas with gratitude. "We turned the worst day of my life into a blueprint for others. Thank you for never giving up on me." Lucas gently kissed her forehead, replying, "Thank you for letting me fight for what's right." Together. And so they continued side by side, a teacher and a billionaire forging a better world from the ashes of injustice. The city's burdens lightened, one step at a time. Kayla's story remained a testament. Even the humblest among us can stand tall, especially when love and truth converge to confront cruelty, ensuring that, in the end, no one stands alone against oppression. Kayla Williams's ordeal began with a casual walk down a city street and ended in a sweeping challenge to injustice itself. From the chilling moment she was handcuffed without reason to the triumphant day an abusive officer faced termination, her journey exemplified courage, solidarity, and strategic might. In refusing to cower, Kayla found allies in activist networks, a compassionate legal team, and above all, her devoted billionaire boyfriend, whose resources and unwavering belief turned mere protests into decisive change. If this story resonates, if you value the power of personal conviction intersecting with community action, please like this video to spread the word. Share it with friends, colleagues, and all who champion fair policing and racial justice, and subscribe to our channel for more narratives where everyday struggles meet extraordinary responses. Together, we'll keep the conversation alive and push for a world where no one's dignity is negotiable. Thank you for tuning in and for standing on the side of hope.